Yeah, looks like we're live.
Says I just got a warning saying we're looks like this broadcast was deleted on Facebook. Try creating a new broadcast or just I don't know what that means. That's all right. I think we're live on YouTube on both our YouTube channels.
Yeah, I'll check. I'll check while we get this started up.
All right. Well, hopefully we got people tuning in. I don't know if we do or not.
If they put some comments up there, it'll pop up.
Where put comments up?
Yeah, if people comment, they'll pop up on the right side for us.
Oh, okay. Good deal. All right. Well, good to see you, man. You've been doing some looks like you've gone through some pretty serious classes over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I have. And I still got 2 more coming up. So it's first half of this year. It has been wild, absolutely wild.
And these are classes you're taking yourself, not teaching.
Yeah, facts. I've done both, but yeah, I've taken. Let's see, I helped / took Mark Smith's 2-day law enforcement class in January. Let's see, I had Tim Herron at the very beginning of February up in North Alabama, and then at the end of February I had Steve Anderson. Both of those two I was just purely student in. And let's see, what's this? Is it March now? Yeah, March 15th.
Yeah.
At the end of April, I have Ed Monk, instructor, shooter. Excuse me, Lord have mercy. Ed Monk's active shooter instructor curriculum. And then at the beginning of May, I'll be AIing for Riley Bowman.
Cool.
So yeah, super packed first 5 months of the year.
Yeah, those are some impressive names there, man. Tim Herron seems to be a decent shooter.
It seems to, he's only got a couple national championships under his belt.
Yeah, Johnny sent me his video of him shooting that. What was it? It was the bill drill, all headshots in 2
all
seconds.
Head box. Yeah, all head box in sub 2 seconds, man. That's
and I thought, yeah, I can do that if I have enough crack. I mean, I can't even look at the freaking head in 2 seconds. Okay.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Some of those guys, they just have extreme visual processing skills that some of us just can't fathom. Like it's something we've never experienced, and to see it done, it really does seem like magic sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have probably run into it too. I have run into, not often, but occasionally, people that you can look at and say, you know, they are just kind of natural shooters. They pick up on things so quickly. You know, and I think that hand-eye coordination plays a role in it. It's kind of like, you know, on a football team, you know, I mean, nobody in their right mind would have ever said, yeah, let's take Carl and make him a wide receiver. You know, but on the other hand, I was a pretty deadly defensive tackle back in the day, you know, so it's just, we all were football players, but some of us had skills the others didn't, you know. But yeah, those, you know, that video of, and I've never met Tim. I just know him through, you know, through reputation, mainly through you and Johnny. And, but he's definitely an impressive guy. And, Riley, I mean, I think Riley Bowman's name speaks for itself. So,
Riley's done a lot in the community, not just teach, man, but he has been, and a lot of those guys are. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm saying anyone else isn't, but Riley has been a shining example of what a good sportsman looks like and does in our community.
Yeah.
I mean, from being the face of concealedcarry.com to making quality holsters at KSG to being a great representative of gray guns, custom guns, and shooting for them, a steward of the sport, a steward of the community. He's just, and you're never going to find him without a smile on his face and a good attitude.
Yeah.
It's just how he is, man. He is absolutely the shining star example of the type of people we need more of in this community.
Yeah, and I've said it, a lot. I've been around other sports. Grew up playing football, especially, and I had two sons that played football, and I've got one son that's a shotgun competitor and travels all over Alabama and into Tennessee and Florida, even to shooting competitions every year. He does it year round, and uh, been around various sports, and I think the best people that you meet, I mean this sincerely, are in the sports. I mean, you
They
just
really are.
It's kind of like, even if we're competing against each other, we're on the same side.
We are. We absolutely are. And don't get me wrong. There's competitors out there that get on my daggum nerves, and
Right.
they get a little too competitive for my taste. I'm like, dog, look, ain't nobody here getting paid to do this. I'm gonna need you to chill out just a little, man. It ain't that serious. If you win or
Yeah.
lose, guess what? You still ain't getting paid, so chill.
Yeah. Yeah. But even from the standpoint of, being willing to teach new competitors, people like me. I mean, I've been shooting guns my entire life, and been really into shooting handguns 33 years now, 31, 32, 33 years. But I never got into competitions. It was kind of more of competing with myself, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I shot my first competition. I should say my first, actual competition, formal competition last year, and it's kind of amazing how how the guys that have been doing it for some time are willing to step in and help you. Hey, you might try this, you might try that, and you don't generally see that. I mean, nobody from the Minnesota Vikings is going to walk across the sidelines to the Oakland Raiders quarterback and say, "Hey," But in the shooting world, you see that, even though that person conceivably could use the information you gave him at some point and come back and beat you with it. But it's more. There just seems to be a lot more camaraderie there.
It is
in the shooting world. So,
I said this. Let's see, Memphis Beach. Man, my best friend Mikos, he had me on his live YouTube channel not long ago, and he asked the question, what do I recommend if you're someone that's into shooting but has never shot a competition? Like, how do you get there? Man, literally just make a post on Facebook or in a shooting group saying, hey, I'd like to do some competition shooting. Who do I talk to? And I guarantee you're going to find 2 or 3 people that are literally throwing equipment, guns, and ammo at you to get you to come out and shoot your first match, and literally going to help you the whole way. Man, Nate, I guess golf is like that, or tennis or anything like that. But just the fact that you can hop in a group, throw out that question, you're going to have 2 or 3 people bending backwards to help you out says a lot about the community.
Yeah, it does. And I got to meet Mikos a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I remember that. How was it?
Man, what a tremendous guy. I mean, he's just
a heart of gold.
I can't see how anybody can be in a bad mood around that guy, man.
You can't. You absolutely can't. He actually, so he's taking our class that I got coming up this Saturday. It's a Jim Krantz practical performance class with a USPSA match the next day. Anyway, he's coming down that morning, Saturday morning. He's going to spend the night with me Saturday night and shoot the match with us Sunday. And I'm a fairly nice guy, but he is welcome in my home anytime, absolutely anytime. That's what I think of him.
Yeah, no question. He he called me, texted me actually through our mutual friend Johnny, who has taken your class.
Mr. Johnny.
I think it's taking another class from you in the fall this year.
He's hosting. He's actually hosting for me. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm planning on being at that one too. By the way,
We were talking about that today, actually. About
even though I'm old school and have not gotten into optics on handguns yet. I mean, look, man, I'm only a few years out of putting optics on rifles. So, I mean, I started very begrudgingly shooting with rifle scopes about 2002.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and I was in my 30s. I was mid 30s before I ever hunted with a scope. And so I'm even slower on handguns, but I'm planning on coming up and taking that class. But anyway, yeah, Miko's texted me one day, and Johnny had told him that I was interested in going to the Range Master instructor development course.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And so, you know, we texted a few times, and I'm not a texter very much. I mean, I get tired of it after a little while, and I'll just pick the freaking phone up and call. And that's what I did. And then 2 hours later, when he and I got off the phone, you know, I never met him, never laid eyes on him, but it was like, you know, we just we're good. Well, but now look, we both have the Marine Corps thing, and you know, a Marine never meets another Marine. That you know, we're family automatically. So
exactly.
But yeah, what a cool guy. So we were shooting a shotgun competition up in Memphis, and I told him that I was coming up there. He actually came out and met us and met my son and some of the guys and the coaches from our shotgun, and from our team, we ate lunch there at the range, and just what a super guy, man. I mean, just I think I've only met him one time, but I just think so highly of him. I mean, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the finest people you'll ever meet are in the gun world. You know, they are. I mean,
my best friends that I have in life are from the shooting community, and I met them through this. We just so happen to share the same interest, but the root of it is there's just so many good people, and I'm not going to be around you if you ain't a good person. But I have a hard time finding people that ain't good people in the shooting community.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Hey, let's do this before we get too far into this. My dog is coming up. She wants to be petted. And my other dog's over there chasing his tail. But anyway, so some of the classes you've taken, what were this, you know, here since the first of the year, what are some of the big takeaways from those?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I'll start chronologically, or else I'll forget. In Mark Smith's class, and you know, a lot of these classes that I take, man, it's not just to learn how to shoot. It's actually very little of that. It's more so being around excellent people and watching how the greatest of the great teach and their delivery of things and their take on things, so that I can continue to mold and adapt and evolve my own teachings. I'm not now. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I ain't there to rip off nobody. I'm there to absolutely better myself and better the way I teach, so that I can better serve my students.
Right,
wholeheartedly. All right, so we'll start with Mark Smith. Mark Smith taught me that I need to work harder. Straight. Some of the ways he delivered it made me realize that I ain't working hard enough. I've really got to put in a whole lot more practice. So, and then we got into a little bit of a shot calling. Shot calling is something I'd like to start teaching soon. But first, I have to learn it, and I have to quote unquote perfect it. There's no such thing as perfection. I know this, but there's really no better word for it. So I got to see his take on shot calling and how to deliver it and how to teach it. So then let's see, we go to Tim Herron's class the 1st of February, and I get his take on how to build better grip structure at the holster. I really liked his take on that. And a little bit of grip tweaks that he allowed people to experiment with that I never thought about allowing people to experiment with. I like that as well. And then his shot calling approach. it's safe to say that Tim Herron has pretty much the biggest, the best, most long drawn out and intensive shot calling exercises there is, and it was absolutely excellent. There's nothing shy of mind blowing. I don't want to give away his gold or nothing like that, but I'm just saying, if you're going to go to a Tim Herron class, you're going to pull a lot out of day 2 or day 1 on shot calling, and then day 2 you're going to learn how to apply it. Anyway, and if you don't know what shot calling is, for those listening,
that was my next question. So, because I know there are people out there watching that don't understand it. So
yeah, so super easy, and its most fundamental way of explanation is just knowing where the shot went based on your sights as soon as the recoil starts. So
you're following the recoil, not the report of the gun, right?
Yeah. So, and I have a really bad habit of trying to call my shot off of a trigger break. And here, long story short, the distance between your brain and your finger is a whole lot further than the distance between your brain and your eyeballs. So I need to break the habit of calling my shots with the trigger break and embrace shot calling with my sights and what I see. It's more reliable, it's faster, so on and so forth. Anyway, not to dive too terribly deep in that. It's just the shot calling is the ability to know where your shot went without having to look at it after you shot it. You know, as soon as you pulled the trigger and you saw the sights lift, you knew exactly where that sight was, and it is within the realm of acceptable hit, which, you know, tells you whether or not you can get off that target and get on to the next or make it up real quick. Anywho, so then I go to Steve Anderson's class. And if you're wanting to up your mental management game and your match mode and really polish off your competitive shooting game, Steve Anderson's the guy to see. And he has a shooting podcast, that shooting show, where he talks about a lot of this stuff. And you can go to his website as well. He's actually Lanny Basham's approved instructor for the mental management system. And so if you don't know who Lanny Basham is, Lanny Basham was an Olympic and world shooter champion from the 80s and maybe the 70s, but I won't say 80s and 90s. He wrote the book With Winning in Mind. It's a great book. I'd show it to you, but my girlfriend has it right now, actually. So if you want to look into that, you can go to mentalmanagement.com as well. Anywho, so Steve Anderson, we talked a lot about that. We went over match performance, the difference between practicing, match mode, speed mode, accuracy mode, all that jazz. I ended up winning like the majority of the accuracy challenges. I think we did like 7 or 8 of them, and I only lost 2. And this was before I got the new steel frame mechanic. And so I was shooting my old beat up Glock 34 that's had well over 100,000 rounds through it. So anyway, had a great time doing that. Learned about all that good stuff. Learned some new little tricks and tips on footwork. That was a good thing because my footwork lacks incredibly. I mean, I guess that's
you got to see mine.
I guess that comes down to perspective, because to people that don't do what I do, I look like a ninja with a gun in my hand. But in fact, when people are amazing at doing what we do, I look like a noob.
Yeah, like I said, you should see my footwork. And the thing is, I've got a decent understanding of how to move laterally and your foot positions, but with bad knees, bad hips, bad lower back, bad shoulders, and I just found out 2 weeks ago that I've also got all of the discs in my neck pressing up against my spinal cord, and I don't move quite as well as I once did.
Yeah, I don't imagine so.
But I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better at the footwork of being able to move laterally and shoot simultaneously while you're moving.
It's a whole different skill, and then there's guys out there that don't feel that movement while shooting is all that important. And then there are folks out there that think movement is the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people that are just kind of living in the middle like me.
Yeah, and I think I am too. I think in a self-defense situation, if you look at your average bad guy, most of them. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of the same surveillance videos that I've seen, and I've seen guys walk into to a convenience store and try to hold the place up with a gun that was out of battery.
Yeah.
So some of them aren't the sharpest knives in the drawer. And if
Right.
you can add just a step or two or three to the left or right, you're going to completely throw them out of whack. But
Yeah.
we can't gamble on that. So, I think it's important. I think it probably becomes more important in certain areas of competition. I was watching Mike Seeklander do a show 15-minute or so demonstration a few weeks ago, and I can see where in competition that would be great. I think if you can do it in self-defense, I mean, why would you not want to? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but I've always been taught and kind of stuck with, move as you're deploying the gun, and then kind of come to a stop as you get on target and actually make contact with the aggressor. And most of the time, I think that's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing's 100%. So
That's right. Yeah. So while we're on the subject, I graduated the ASP instructor certification program last year, and for my final project, I talked about movement, and it's a live display and a live ordeal. So I got in my backyard with my dry fire / movement um, ordeal. I have a couple traffic cones and some 1x2s that I have up there just to get the feet movement and have some spots on the ground to move to and from and around. Anyway, and so they were like, "Yeah, that's all cool and all, but of all the videos we've watched, no private citizen moves while shooting." And he said, "I just looked up 10 videos. 7 out of those 10 were stand and deliver. 3 of those 10 involved movement, and in those 3, 2 of the good guys died." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, for sure. But of those 10, how many of the good guys are at the skill level that me and the people I teach are at?"
right.
So while I wouldn't, so movement is not something I would teach a beginner by any means.
Right, sure.
All right. I don't even know if I would teach it in the beginnings of an intermediate, other than
I don't,
maybe
even,
a step and draw.
I don't even teach a beginner to draw.
Yeah. So
With a
desensitization.
beginner, I'm trying to get them on target. I'm trying to get
Yeah.
them to do simple things like
Mhm.
point the gun and shoot without moving the gun.
Exactly. Yeah. Get familiarity and desensitization are two of the best things you can start out as a beginner. But I had to remind them, I was like, "Hey, I don't teach this stuff to beginners. I'm just using this because this is something I fully believe in advanced training that we should start doing and getting good at."
Right.
I cut my teeth helping a guy named Rodney May teach SWAT teams and the alike, right? Alphabet soup and all that jazz, working in shoot houses. And so many times have I watched these guys roll through a room and shoot a target while still going towards their point of domination. They're working their sector, moving to their point of domination, and still blasting away at whoever they need to blast away at while moving. I mean,
Right.
you can't tell me that shooting on the move doesn't have some sort of application. And
Sure.
now, it's situationally depictant, I wholeheartedly agree. But I feel like it's a skill that we should at least talk about, and in the advanced side of training, we should start getting into.
I couldn't agree more. I took a class 5 or 6 years ago with a friend of mine that was head of the tactical training unit for the U.S. Marshals, and he. I mean, it was not for beginners. You didn't show up at this class. And, although they did let my 14-year-old son go through it, but my 14-year-old son by then even had pretty significant experience in drawing the gun and shooting the gun. I mean, he this is a whole can of worms that we could open up. We'll talk about this later, but I'm not knocking other training programs, instructor courses, but I will tell you, he passed the NRA instructor course at 13. Okay, so for shotgun and handgun. All right, now I'm not saying that pejoratively. We can discuss the details of that later. But the point being, he had some pretty solid shooting experience by then.
Yeah.
But that was the big thing. We started, and we were kind of there really to, I was there kind of to give an opinion on what I thought of the course. And we started out, okay, draw one shot and then draw two shots. And then they started changing it up. And then we implemented movement. Okay, as your hand grips the gun, you're going to take a step to your left or your right. And then so we started moving or implementing movement slowly and incrementally into it. And it wasn't anything, mind-boggling that anybody could do it, but it was sort of an introduction to it. And one of the things I took away from that course was we had in the military. I know we had fired going backwards and forwards, but one of the things they emphasized was lateral movement, and that makes so much more sense. In the, if you're in the situation where you can do it, if you're being backed down a hallway, or let's say you're carjacked between a gas pump and your vehicle, lateral movement's off the table. So you kind of have to do both. But just putting distance between you and the bad guy gives you some advantage. But if we can move laterally and create distance at the same time, your chances of surviving that, winning that gunfight, go up exponentially, I believe.
I mean, yeah. So, and Brian, I'm sure you know who Brian Hill is.
I've heard the name. You got to remember, man, I'm still Bill Wilson, Ken Hackathorn.
Yeah,
I came up in the 90s.
Yeah,
80s.
Yeah, no 90s. Worries. So look up. Bill there. So he's a really popular guy. He owns the Complete Combatant up in Georgia. And so, excuse me, Brian Hill and Shelly Hill, Shelly's his wife, he's been a martial arts coach forever, decades, right? So now he's in the firearms world. And so he and his wife both are like a team deal. And so they're not always together, but they definitely do their own thing, and they have their respective avenues of teaching. You can even go to their website and sign up for little online seminars, 1 and 2 hour training deals. And one of the things they talk about is disrupting the attack cycle. And so imagine disrupting the opponent's, the attacker's OODA loop. All right. So an attacker is looking for an easy target, generally speaking, in the civilian world. Like in you're in my world, we're always a defender, never an offender. The attackers are looking for easy targets. And so if you can just, for one, not be an easy target and add something to the equation that they were totally not expecting, that's going to disrupt their loop. All right. And it's not going to guarantee that you're going to win the fight, but at the very least buy you an extra option or just a little bit of time. And I have a saying that I always revert back to: distance is time, and time is options. And who here doesn't want more options? All right.
Right.
If someone's close enough to smell your breath, guess how many options you have? A whole lot less than if they were 20 yards away.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll take the 20 yards away and all the options over the other. So Yeah, I don't even remember how in the world we got on that loop.
Well, you go back to the OODA loop. What I always try to explain to students when I talk about movement, um, is we want to neutralize the bad guy between orientation or observation and orientation. If we can keep him there where he has to constantly reorient to us, and we
Yeah,
can fire while we are orienting to him and he can't, what advantage does that give us?
yeah, and that even starts digging into the proper use of cover.
Sure,
I
if
mean,
available. Yeah.
if available, and when in doubt, concealment's better than nothing. Hell, hide behind a wooden door. It's better than nothing.
Not everybody in the world knows that. And we sort of touched on this in our texting before we got on here tonight, but not everybody in the world knows that a 9mm will go through a 2x4.
Very easy, especially full metal jackets and specifically mechanically bonded bullets.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
we could go way off into the weeds of that stuff, but
Yeah.
and
Well,
let's
but
do
the point is that even concealment can give you a tactical advantage,
Yep.
because it might slow the other guy down. Oh, I can't shoot through
Hmm.
that car door. He doesn't know
Yeah.
he can. He doesn't know he can. So,
Hmm. And
um,
let's be honest. So I don't know if there's any statistics, but I have uh, read somewhere or another that the most common round fired in a gunfight from attackers, from the bad guys, quote unquote, are full metal jacket, just simply because they're buying the cheapest thing they can get and just having a lot of it.
yeah,
So
well, they're not ballistics experts. I mean, they don't. They probably, if you ask most of them, the overwhelming majority, explain to me the distinction between a hollow point, a soft point, full metal jacket. Bonded,
mhm.
non-bonded. Most of them would think you were talking in a foreign language. They don't even know.
Yeah,
Just like, hey, give me the
yeah,
what goes bang. Um, so
exactly.
yeah, I mean, uh, but like I said, at the same time, I've told students this too. You do have to consider that somewhere in gangland or in in the realm of the modern day outlaw, you do have some combat vets that were in places like Fallujah, and not all of our military veterans come home and remain upstanding people.
Mm,
And we, in my mind, I mean, we've got to train for what is probable, but also within that what is probable. Okay, what's my worst case scenario? And if you get
yeah.
a combat, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of I think mythology that surrounds the self defense world too. Like I know you've heard it. I've heard it a million times. Well, if you want to really scare the bad guy off in your home, rack the pump on a 12 gauge shotgun. All right, but we got people out there that they want to be intimidated by that. They might take it as a
Hmm.
challenge.
Yeah,
So you can't
exactly.
leave anything to chance. And I'm not saying that we all need bayonet studs on the end of our 9mm, or that we need to become operational with a flamethrower or any of that. But within reason,
Yeah.
we've got to train for whatever tactical advantage we can give ourselves.
And of course, our show here is called Combined Arms, and we do focus on the gun side of things. But that leads me into saying this, man. Not all situations are solved by a gun.
Amen.
Like if someone's bad mouthing you, you can't just pull your gun out and be like, "Shut up, mofo." I don't agree with you or whatever. Fill in the blank. I'm trying to be a little PG here, but sometimes being physically fit and if you in a bad situation or whatever and they don't have a gun, knowing how to grapple, knowing how to properly break some teeth out of their mouth without breaking your own hand, knowing how to see those signs well beforehand and getting your family and getting out to where you never have to do any of that to begin with. Like, all these are very viable options.
Absolutely.
Pepper
I read
pepper
an
spray, all
article.
kinds of things are options.
I read an article today, and you kind of just I wanted to bring it up. You kind of just led me into the segue for it. But a woman in Tennessee, I don't know when this happened, but apparently in the last week or so, a friend sent me this article. But she and another driver, a male, got into a brake check competition, which led to a road rage incident. So, in other words, one of them, I guess he was following too close, so she slammed on the brakes. Well, that made him mad, so he rushed up on her again. She slammed the brakes on. Eventually, she just pulled over, and he gets out of his car or truck and is walking towards her, and she leans out the window of her car and shoots the guy one shot and killed him. Yeah.
That's excessive.
Yeah, you know, and the friend of mine that sent this to me, the police didn't file charges on her, and I said, well, you know, just because the cops didn't doesn't mean the DA's not going to. And
Right. Yeah.
you know, if knowing what I know, you know, and I'm not by any means a legal expert, don't take anything I say as legal advice, but my opinion, having studied some of the law, like all instructors, you know, we all need to know,
Yes.
you know, a little bit, as much as we can, at least the basics. But, you know, if I'm that DA, the first question I'm going to ask myself is, did her behavior escalate the situation?
Right.
And I think it did. You know, based on what I read in that article, I don't think there's any question about that. And, you know, why not just drive away? If the guy's following too close, pull over in a parking lot, let him go on down the road, and you pull out and take off. But why antagonize somebody to that point, you know, and then wind up having to kill them?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, it all goes back to ego. And I think I said this last month when we did this, but, you know, I think when you're carrying a handgun, or when you have any type of advanced skills, let's say in martial arts or anything like that, you know, to me, one of the most important characteristics you must have is humility.
Yes.
You must be able to walk away and to try as best as you can to avoid conflict.
I agree. I tell people all the time, take that pride, take that ego, and if you care about your family, throw that crap out the window.
Sure.
All right. Pride and ego ain't never going to win any sort of issue. All right. And man, I was in church this past Sunday, and our pastor was even talking about how pride is the enemy of oh God, I don't want to mess this up. We were talking about how to fully surrender to the Lord and live a proper life of righteousness. And I don't want to screw this up, so I'm paraphrasing here. Pride is basically the enemy of all of that. And I 100% feel that is true to your own self-defense and the defense of the ones you love.
Yeah, I think it's at the root of all. You know, I don't want to get theological here because I'm no theologian, but I think it's ultimately at the root of all wrongdoing, of all sin. You know, I could sit here for the next few minutes and make that case, but related to self-defense, I'll give you an example, and I'll use myself. Now, look, I'm preaching to myself here too, because there was a point in time when Carl would knock you upside the head
and not think twice about it.
You know, family changes things, you know.
Yeah.
But a few months back, I had my dog at the vet, and I was expecting a text or a phone call from the vet to tell me what was going on with him. He had some serious internal issues going. Turned out he had gotten in the garbage and swallowed 10 feet of saran wrap. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And we knew something was blocking his intestines. We didn't know what. And they wound up removing all of that. And he's fine now. But anyway, I was a little worried about him. So I was at a red light. I was in the turn lane. I pulled out in the middle of the intersection, and I got a text. as I was sitting there and the light was green, and I pulled my phone up and I started reading that text. Well, the light turned red and I'm blocking the intersection. And somebody blows their horn at me, and I looked up and I said, "Oh yeah, I got to go." So I made my turn, and as I did, some guy in a truck yells out his window, "Get out of the way, dumbass!" You know. And for a brief second in time, the old Carl came out, and I hit the brakes. And in my mind, I'll yank you out of the truck, son, and we'll go at it right here. And then, you know, my training kicked in and said, you know what, you better let this go. Because, you know, number one, I'm an old guy now. I'm not in the shape I was once in. And number two, you know, I'm a pretty large fella. Let's say he's a much smaller fella. And he says, I should have kept my mouth shut. Maybe I ought to just shoot this guy. You know, you're not guaranteed to win the fight. And even if you do, you know, if I had acted as my initial instincts, you know, told me to act at that time, you know, I could have wound up either dead in the hospital or charged with a crime because I contributed to the escalation of something that really just came out of, you know, somebody calling me an ass, you know.
So the whole definition of an innocent party is someone that did not start or escalate the situation.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to be looked highly upon in the court of law, if you ever do have to defend your freedom and your assets in the court, then you need to be part of the innocent party, plain and simple.
Absolutely. And you know, I think knowing that a lot of people overlook it, and I think that if you can do everything you possibly can to avoid a conflict and use deadly force strictly as a last resort, even in the states like ours where stand your ground laws are in place, I still think if you can avoid the conflict,
you should.
If you can back up and you know, say get to safety before we resort to deadly force, that looks heavily in your favor when you know, if you do wind up in a court of law. So,
and you know, and we live in a time where everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got a camera. There's surveillance cameras everywhere.
Absolutely.
So you can't just lie yourself out of a situation either. Like there's gonna be evidence, plain and simple. I mean, I've heard of court cases where they literally used a neighbor's doorbell camera as evidence. You know, because be like, oh well, they were the aggressor in my home, and they used the neighbor's doorbell camera to see if that was actually the case.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't know what you don't know, man, and there's cameras everywhere. So just always err on the side of getting out of the way. Don't escalate anything. Just take your pride, throw it and the ego, throw it out the window, and go home safe at night.
And if you do get back into that corner, have the skills to get out of it. You know, give yourself the best option. And that's where, you know, learning sound fundamentals. And, you know, when I say learning, I don't mean understanding them in your mind, but putting them into practice over and over again and training to a point where you can maintain them. You know, that's where all that comes in. So, you know, at that point, if you've done everything you can do to avoid the conflict, and then it comes down to the point where I'm backed in the corner, I have no other option but to draw my gun and shoot. I do have the skills to do it. At that point, you know, you've done everything you can, and hopefully it's all going to come out in your favor. You know, if you do wind up in either criminal or civil court. So you make a much better defendant in that situation. I'll put it that way.
And I'm here to tell you that half-hearted decisions are not going to help you to your favor. If it's time to fight, you need to be all in.
Absolutely.
You need to be the angriest, most deadly person in that area and do exactly that. Do whatever it is you need to do. Because if you've been pushed to that point, that means all other options have been exhausted, and it's time to go. Like it's ding ding round 9 with Mike Tyson, and you're down a few points. You got to make it up. So do it to it.
Yeah.
All in.
I tell all of my students, and we're at 45 minutes, so we may leave it on this.
Yeah.
If that's cool with you. But I tell all of them, look, be kind, be humble, avoid conflict. But when you're backed into a corner, fight like a savage. Everything is on the table. You know, if you fight fair, your tactics suck. You know, it's not only your life you're fighting for, but you got family members that want to keep you around too.
Yeah.
So,
no,
well, all right, buddy. Hey, man, that 45, 46 minutes, however long it was, went quick.
It did.
But if we sit here and talk all night, we'll have a hard time coming up with stuff for the next one. So
that's right. That's right.
I hope we can build an audience on this, and hope everybody out there likes it. And you've got Tyler is one of the best shooters I know, and what you get out of me is I believe wholeheartedly that everybody has a right to my opinion.
Hallelujah.
We'll leave it at that. Good to see you, man.
You too, brother. I appreciate you.
And I look forward. I am planning on signing up for that class that you're doing.
Yeah, man.
Over here in Alabama in October. So
even though I will probably
be there red dotless,
you'll that's totally fine. So you haven't met Stony Steele yet, but man, you'll love him. He's another heart of gold, just amazing guy.
Good deal. All right, buddy. Well, hey, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
I hope everybody has a good night. Well, I hit in broadcasted it.